Are you ready to take your business to the next level and make the money you want so that you can create the impact you desire? Then you're in the right place. It's possible to run a successful business built around your life. Get ready for a little bit of tough love and a whole lot of strategy to grow your business without sacrificing your sanity. If you're ready to get out of your own way and step into the role of CEO, then let's go. I'm Amy Traw, and this is the Motivated CEO Podcast. Welcome back into the Motivated CEO Podcast. Today's conversation, I am so looking forward to. I first met Cristal last April when I was at an event here in Ohio, and she was on stage speaking, and her story just resonated like to my soul. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's just so full of life and energy. And I love everything that she is about. And I cannot wait to introduce her to you today. So, with that being said, Cristal, welcome into the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. I can't wait to chat all things and see who we serve, who we say whatever we say that's meant to reach somebody else.
Yes, exactly. I feel like people always receive the exact message that they need to hear.
Yes.
So, before we dive in, tell us all the things about yourself, who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
In this season, I am a new mom. I am a new mom to an almost 3-month old. He turns 3 months this month. I am an entrepreneur. I have a global movement called She is Made for More. It's a movement empowering women to unapologetically step into their more confidence, more self-love, their dreams, everything, especially because I feel like we live in a world where when you step into your more, you're seen as you're being too much or you're showing off. So it's a global movement we've started. We within that movement, we host retreats, we host events, memberships, masterminds, like a space for anyone who is wanting to step into their more. We have that container, but we started that movement and now I am just running the company. We have events. I am a new mom, and I think that the shortest answer is that I'm just a new mom navigating my business.
I love it because, yes, we are all navigating this. And before we hit record, you and I were talking about just different evolutions in our lives since we had last
Yeah.
connected and how much has changed. And as entrepreneurs, I think this is something that's not talked about enough is as our identity begins to shift, as we evolve as entrepreneurs, this can be kind of a messy process. It's a
Mm-hmm.
process that like I fought for a really,
Yeah.
really long time. But in order to step into your more, like you said, it's necessary that we evolve, that we transform, that we step into this new identity. So, what has that looked like for you? How have you navigated this process?
I think it's really important to start off by saying, like, full transparency, we're ever evolving humans, and what we
Yep.
once wanted might not be what we want in this current season, and that's okay. And I just recently did a podcast, like a whole episode on this on my podcast, which is why like it feels so fresh right now to talk about it. But I was sharing how we are very ambitious humans. For like we have goals and we want to do things, and we set our what is it like set your eye on the prize, and we work really hard for them. But here's the thing: when you get to that destination, sometimes you realize this isn't what I wanted, and that is completely okay. And whoever needs to hear that on today's episode is reminder that you are an ever evolving human, and what you once wanted might not be what you currently want. And that's okay. We get to pivot, we get to shift, and get to continue working towards the things that we want. Right. But for me, the more was I used to be a school teacher. I was a school teacher and I was a school teacher for 6 years, and exactly what I just said. I got there and I loved it for the time that I loved it. And eventually, I don't want to say I didn't love it, but it wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. And I felt it. And I don't know who's listening to this episode right now that is in a career that probably you already outgrew. or is in a friendship or relationship or in a situation where you know you've outgrown it. You know you're not meant to be there anymore, but we're holding on to it because we think this is what I've worked so hard for. If I leave right now, I'm a quitter. If I leave right now, I failed. And first and
Mm-hmm.
foremost, no, that's not true. You are an ever evolving human. I'm probably going to say that a million times, but you're an ever evolving human. And if you guys just look at nature, just nature itself, we have spring, summer, rain, like winter, all the things like the beautiful world. A lot of us admire fall, or we're summer people, or we're winter people, the beautiful snow laying there. Like if the world has the audacity to change seasons and be admired and be loved by so many, the same thing goes for us. We're ever
Yeah.
evolving humans that get to have the audacity to pivot and change and find the things that truly make our life worth living. Because otherwise, we're just sitting there wondering, was this it?
Yeah.
Is there more out there? And we'll never know until we make that leap. So for me, it was leaving teaching. And for me, full transparency, when I left teaching, I had no idea what I was going to do. I just left. I was like, I'm this many years old, and if I don't leave, I'm never going to leave, and I'm gonna try it. And worst case scenario, I can come back to teaching. And
Exactly.
I left.
Exactly. But you gave yourself that permission to try. And honestly, like
Mhm.
everything you were saying, I resonate with because I was there too. I worked so hard to earn this piece of paper on the wall telling me I was qualified
Yeah.
to do something. And that's what I built my whole identity around. So once I started to have the opportunity to pause and ask myself and reflect, like, what do I really want out of this life? I realized, oh my gosh, it's not the life that I'm living right now. And that came with a lot of
Yeah.
guilt. That came with a ton of guilt.
Hmm.
And I honestly think that the people around me too weren't fully supportive of it because they were trying to keep me safe. Because they
Yeah.
didn't want to see me risking something that was such a
Yes.
sure thing. And I think society really ingrains that in us that, okay, you choose this career path, you worked so hard for this. Like,
Yeah.
you have to stay in this position, and we almost like
Yeah.
play small and like hold ourselves back and don't give ourselves that
Hmm.
permission to, like you said, just step into that new identity and evolve. Your analogy with the
Yeah.
seasons is perfect to describe that.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like for somebody listening to this episode that's like, well, I don't know what I want. Okay, cool. You don't know what you want. But let me tell you this, you do know what you do not want.
Yes.
Yeah, I may not
Yes.
know what I wanted back then, and I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I didn't want to be in that classroom. That I did know for sure. I knew that I didn't want to wake up and have my day be exactly the same thing every single day. That I knew I didn't want. So if you're in a season where you're like, okay, I feel like there's more or I want to pivot, but I don't know what I want, no worries. Then reverse the question and ask yourself, well, what don't I want? And that will come up really fast. And
Yes.
you get to say, okay, how do I move from this? How do I not, if this is what I don't want, then how am I going to shift this in my life? And the other point that you talked about that I love so much is people don't support us at the beginning because they're trying to keep us safe. Here's the thing, people only know what they know.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, many of us, we are the first people, the crazy dreamers, the ones doing stuff that doesn't seem logical. Like, what do you mean you're starting a podcast? What do you mean you're going to put yourself on the internet? Like, nobody wants to see people on the internet and don't show your life and all of it. Most of us are first generation doing this. And
Hmm.
it's not that our loved ones don't support us, is that they don't know how to support us. They know how to protect us and they know how to take care of us. And that means sometimes talking us out of these crazy dreams because they don't make sense. But also, every single time I talk, I always go back to this line, you are your ancestors' wildest dreams. And you saw me speak on stage, so you heard me say it, but
Yes.
you given this dream or you given this crazy idea to start the podcast, the course, the YouTube channel, the TikTok, whatever it is, the movement, whatever you want to start, you are your ancestors' wildest dreams, meaning it wasn't an accident that it was given to you. It wasn't an accident, Amy, that you were at your job and you had life good and it felt good, but then you still wanted to leave. It wasn't an accident that I left because you started a beautiful community, Amy. You started a podcast, you have an event. Like so many people wouldn't have been able to step into that season of their life if you hadn't said yes. And I need everybody like to remember this and hear this but you are the permission slip that somebody else is waiting for. And I hope you don't take that lightly. I hope that you sit with that and you're like, okay, what do I need to say yes to that's going to give somebody else permission to say yes to? Because the world is waiting for somebody that looks like you, that sounds like you, that walks and talks and moves like you, because they've never seen somebody else be represented
Mm,
until you are going to show up in that platform that you're going to do.
yes, you are absolutely 100% right. And it's not easy when you come to that realization and you realize, okay, I'm meant for more, but I have no clue what that
Yeah.
is, what that looks
Yeah.
like. That's a very scary place. I still
Oh, yeah.
vividly remember being there, like ugly crying outside, during the pandemic. I see my kids playing and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm missing this. It was like that was the like final sign from the
Mm.
universe that like I needed to just stop. Like, okay, this is my wake up call. And I can either continue to go through life on autopilot or take this as that opportunity to build something even better, to show my girls that it's okay to change your mind. That
Mm-hmm.
just because you tried one thing, exactly as you said, I found out what didn't work, what I didn't
Yeah.
want. And even in my entrepreneurial journey, I've built multiple very successful businesses, but it's been in the process of building those businesses that I truly discovered, you know what? I really like this. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like that. It's in the doing, in really getting quiet and quieting the noise all around me. I just posted about this today. Like, I always take a walk during lunch and I just totally unplug. And today, after my
Mm-hmm.
walk, the sun is shining here in Northeast Ohio, which is really rare. And I just sat there and I just soaked in that sunshine, listened to the birds chirping, just allowed myself to be present in the moment and come back to myself and realize like, I get to live this life. This one moment is the only thing that is guaranteed. But it was because I gave myself permission. I gave myself that permission
Mm-hmm.
to evolve and to take that messy action and do things scared and be
Yeah.
willing to fail, quote unquote, and screw
Yeah.
things up, make mistakes. But that taught me lessons. I have learned so much through taking that action. And it's a beautiful thing that now I can share that wisdom and knowledge with others that, you know what? None of us have it all figured out. And guess what? If you think
Yeah.
you have it figured out, technology is going to change in 2 days and we're going to have to figure it out all over again. And that's okay. When we can start
Yeah.
leaning into that versus resisting it, oh my gosh, that's where the opportunities open up. And that's where we truly start to live our best lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And oh, it's such a scary place to be in it,
It
Amy.
is.
But also, one of the things that I wish somebody would have told me back then was find a community.
Yes.
Because we live in a world where we have been taught you need to figure it out. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking as early as like being in elementary school where you're not allowed to ask your friend for help. You're not allowed to ask for help, like figure it out by yourself. And it's engraved in us that we need to figure it out alone. And I was always that girl who would rather Google something for 18 hours than ask, hey, Amy, can you help me with this? Because I didn't want to be dumb and I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to bother you. And here's the thing that I've realized in this entrepreneurial journey, if you have the feeling that you're made for more, 100% that dream that was given to you is yours for a reason and you can already make it true. Sometimes we don't know the how. That's a fact. We don't know. I don't know what software do I use to record. I don't know what mic do I use for the podcast. Like we don't know the things that we don't know, and that's okay. But guess what? There's so many entrepreneurs who have already gone through the journey. There's so many people who've already said yes to their more too. We get to be so supported in all seasons. And that's something that I didn't know and that I wish somebody would have said it because I was almost being tied to the struggle of life. And here's the thing that I don't know who needs to hear this, but there is no one handing out medals at the end of your journey for who struggled the most.
Thank
You're
you.
not getting a trophy, you're not getting a medal. So, like, let's realize that in this moment and say, okay, I get to change the narrative and I get to be so supported. What would life look like if we got to be so supported? If I could just call Amy, hey, Amy, I want to start a podcast and I don't know how to do it. Can you help me? And guess what? Also realizing like Amy's fully allowed to say no, and that's okay. It doesn't say anything against me or against her. We're allowed to say no, just like we're allowed to say yes. But if Amy said no, I can reach out to somebody else and I can reach out to somebody else. But you are allowed to be so supported. And I think that's what's important about finding a community to see you. Because a lot of the times when we don't find our community, we tend to put our dreams on our partner or our parents. And I was guilty of this. I told my mom, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to start this and I'm going to do an event. And the first thing that I got was fear. Why? Why would you leave your job? Why? People are going to hear your what story? What are you going to talk about? And without me knowing, she was putting her fear on me, which wasn't even mine. So I
Mhm.
want you to picture this, an exciting Cristal going up to somebody and then all the doubts. Like I left that house wondering, wait a minute, did I do the right thing? Did I do not? But if I were to call Amy, hey, Amy, I want to do an event. I want to do, Amy would like hype me up, get me going. You know what? I ran an event. Here's what I would suggest. Here's what I would do. Find community. If you are in the season of your more and it feels scary and you don't know the direction and any of that, that's okay. Step number one that I recommend is find people to plug into. Find your crazy dreamers. Find your people that are going to be there for you. And let your mom be your mom. Let your husband just be your husband. Let your dad be your dad. Don't put that pressure additional on them to support you during the season that perhaps they might not even know how to navigate either. Because again, the vision was given to you, not to them. And we only know what we know. And it's not,
Mhm.
I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm not trying to be mean to you, Amy. I don't understand it. And that was huge
Right.
because at the beginning I would wonder, well, why doesn't my sister want to support me? Why don't my parents support me? Why don't they want to be at my event? And it's not that they didn't want to be. I just realized that I was putting all this additional pressure on them to be as excited for things as I was. And I've learned over the course of my journey that it is irresponsible almost to put an additional burden on them,
Right.
to expect them to support me when they can't support me because they don't know, they can't see what I'm seeing. So if you're in this season and you're like being discouraged by family members, friends, or even your partner, I hope you go out there and find your community. Like plug into a membership, plug into a mentor, plug into a community, attend an event, find people. Because one, you're not the only one in this world that's going through this major shift and the feelings and the scariness, but you need to find people who are in that season with us and we get to relieve the stress or not add that additional stress to the people that we love. They just get to love us for who we
Guys,
are.
what a beautiful perspective on it because I wish I had heard that message back at the very beginning. Because when
Mm-hmm.
you're going through it, we're afraid to ask for help because it's been instilled in us. Yet when we're a child,
Yeah.
what do you do when you can't do something? You ask for help. But the older
Mm-hmm.
we get, we learn to fear that it's like some sign of weakness when really
Yeah.
asking for help is one of the like highest forms of self-care that there is, realizing that we have a
Yeah.
need and that there are others out there ready and willing to support us. Because when you
Mm-hmm.
find your people that you can link arms with, that's what keeps you going. Especially in
Yeah.
business, you need those people that are going to be your expanders, that are going to help you see bigger, to dream bigger. So you're not playing small. And a lot of times, 99% of the time, they're not going to be people like your mom, your spouse,
Yeah.
your friends.
Yeah.
They don't
Our
get
best
that.
friend from high
Right.
school. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's not any fault of their own. Like you said, you can't
Mm-hmm.
expect them to fill that need. But when you raise your hand and you go, hey, you know what? I'm really struggling with this, chances are there's going to be someone out there that's like, you know what, girl,
Yeah.
I got you. I have got you. And let's figure
Yeah.
this out. And isn't it beautiful though? Like what I've noticed is like you find your people, you find your business besties, and you can just show up totally as you are. And like, you know what? I'm having a really hard day today. And they will give you
Mm-hmm.
the kick in the pants, the tough love that you need to hear. And likewise, the inverse is true. If they're having a hard day, you know what? I'm right there to help Get that dirt off your knees. Let's dust it off, girlfriend, and we're going to move forward. Like, what can we learn from this? But it all comes down to saying those three words: I need
Yeah.
help. And then
Yeah.
being willing to accept the help from others.
Yeah.
Especially in the early stages, I feel like entrepreneurs, people reach out there. We're like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here to help you. But we don't want to accept it. So I think being
Yeah.
open to receiving the help from others is
Yeah.
equally as important.
Yeah. And understanding like you're so worthy. I used to say this a lot,
Yes.
but you're so worthy to receive all like all aspects of life, but even
Yes.
more like you're so worthy to receive help. And I think when you slow down and realize I don't have to be tied to the struggle bus, I don't have to
Yes.
figure things out. It's never like, how do I do this? Is who gets to help me do this? Who is my person? And
Yes.
that's something that I've added into my life over the last few years. And it's always like, okay, I want to do this. Who can help me? I want to
Mhm.
launch this. Who can help me? I want to put this together. Who's done it that I know that can support me? And again, completely understanding that they might say no, and that's okay. It doesn't say anything from them. It's just understanding that people are in different seasons. And I was talking to a friend
Yeah.
recently about this, but I just had a baby. And the availability of Cristal, I used to be able to hop on all these calls and, yeah, whatever time, girl, just send me a message. I'll reach out to you. Realistically, in the season that I'm in, you can't just message me at 3 a.m. and be like, hey, call me. I'm with this little human that in this season needs me. Now I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I can't. I'll call you tomorrow. It doesn't mean that I hate you or that I don't want to support
Right.
you. It just means that in this season of life, I can't. And understanding that if I were to say no or somebody were to say no to me, it has nothing to do with me. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean, oh, they don't want to serve me. It just means like, hey, people are in seasons. And then there's people who are, I was talking to somebody and they said, hey, what does your schedule look like? So I was going over my schedule and she said, I have a daughter who's 21-year-old now. So she doesn't need me. So my availability went from being very like I'm available here and there to now I'm available all the time. And I love being available all the time. Mine was on the flip side. It went from being available all the time to now I have to schedule time for feeding, burping, sleeping, naps, all the things.
Right.
But it doesn't take away like knowing like I get to be so supported and I get to receive help. And also when I'm supporting people, in case you are the person who wants to serve everybody and be there for everyone, you also deserve to set, I don't even want to call them boundaries, but you also deserve to set the schedule, the flow, how you want it. It doesn't
Hmm.
make you a bad person for saying no. So if you are also on the other side, the person who says yes to everything, here's your little nudge that sometimes you get to say no, and it doesn't make you a bad human, nor does it make the other person a bad human either.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a firm believer in of the theory that if you don't ask, the answer will always be no.
Yeah,
And
I
the
love
other
that.
person, if they say no, that's not a reflection, exactly like you said, of
Mhm.
no, I don't support you as a person. I don't support you as a friend. No, it's just I don't have it in my capacity to fully support you in the
Yeah,
role you need me to at this time. So
yeah,
we need to stop like internalizing it and telling ourselves these stories that no, oh, she's just going to say no. I'm not even going to make the ask
yeah,
because I know it's going to be a no. Like, well, no, do
yeah.
you really know that? And if it is a no, exactly like you said, a lot of times it's just coming from a place of love. Like, I can't serve you to the extent that you need right now. And
Hmm.
that's okay. Just being
Yeah,
respectful of that because as you said, a lot of us get into trouble. We're people pleasers. I'm a recovering people
yeah,
pleaser. So I would love
yeah.
to help everyone all of the time, 24/7. But I know in order to best serve, that there have to be limits, that there have to be those, like you said, I don't even know if boundaries is the right word, but just being respectful to myself, honoring
Hmm.
my time, really, to me, placing like my faith, my family, my marriage, all of that
Hmm.
comes before my business. I love my business. I love my clients. I love the work that I do. But if I don't have those three things in place, it creeps into the business. It
Yeah.
makes running the business harder because I can't show up as my best self to pour into others. So I think it's really important what you said there with, hey,
Yeah.
it's okay to say no, but yeah,
Yeah.
make the ask because you never know. Or
Yeah.
maybe you can't support them at the time, but you know someone that can.
Yeah.
That's always,
Uh-huh.
a really important thing that I like to do. If I have to say no, I'm like, I can't support you right now, but here's somebody that maybe you could reach out to. Try them and they could best
Yeah.
support you right now. So,
Yeah.
absolutely love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also like just being reminded, like, there are people in this world that want to help us because I
Yes.
was at a mastermind. I was at a mastermind these past days
Yeah.
that I joined, and I met this amazing human. And she said, "Hey, I'm starting this business, but also I get in my head and like I'm in the thick of it and I get in my head and I don't want to do something." And I grabbed her and I said, "You know what? On those days where you can't move forward, call me." I said, "I might not be able to answer you all the time, but I am giving you my permission right now. Like I'm telling you, for some reason, I'm really being navigated or attracted to you and being like pulled towards you. Call me. I may not be able to answer you all the time, but I am the best hype woman and I will hype you up and I will pump you up. And on those days where you don't feel like it, I will be there to help you." And afterwards, we were talking in a circle and she said, "Well, you know what's weird? We're not taught that we deserve help. We're not taught that we're allowed to be supported." Because even earlier, when you were telling me, like, call me, I was still processing in my head, is this girl serious? Like,
Right.
does she actually mean it? So again, we're mean making machines. Like, we want to make meaning of everything. And when you're telling me something, like, we're already having narratives in our mind running. But the truth of the matter is, we need to slow down and say, okay, I deserve help. And that's going to be
Mhm.
uncomfortable because with every cell in my body, the first time I had asked for help, with every cell in my body went like, oh, no, no. Like it just like I froze and I didn't want to. But like you said, if you don't dare to ask, the answer will always be no.
Yeah.
And knowing that you're worthy of it over and over and over again, you're worthy of it.
Yes, you are so worthy. Crystal, this conversation was so amazing. I appreciate you. How can we get into your world and learn more about you?
The main place to find me is Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I share my life there, all the things. The second place to find me is the podcast. We have a podcast called She Is Made for More, where we have conversations like this, little reminders, little pep talks. Other women share their stories, just reminding you of you're worthy of your more.
Yes. Thank you so much for just being such a light for so many others. I appreciate you.
Th- Thank you so much for having me. And again, it's truly an honor to get to serve your community. And I hope we said something that's going to resonate with someone and it's going to give them that little kick in the butt that they need to remember that, they don't have to be tied to the struggle. This is the
Yes.
year that we get to cut that cord and realize we're worthy and we deserve it.
Yes. Because, Mama, you are truly made for more. I just love
Yes.
everything that you're about. Well, until next time, cheers to making the money you want so that you can create the impact you desire. Are you loving what you're hearing? Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode.